Well, this is really exciting. We just completed the New Year's retreat, and we're going to have a refuge ceremony. Oh my God. I mean, oh my Buddha. Sometimes I say, thank God for Buddha. In those moments, you know. It really is terrific that 6 people have now come forth and going to take refuge at 4 o'clock. So we'll save a little time to read the aspirations for Mahamudra, but right now we could have some Dharma discussion. So there's a couple questions, and we need a microphone. There's 4 questions. Jeff, microphone. Going around for discussion. Sometimes we get deep into our practice. There were hands up. Okay.
My question is a follow-on to Jeff's point about curiosity, or the session on curiosity. It seemed to me when I was digging into it, it's more like an investigation, and then my mind is sort of spinning around, what's this? When I think of curiosity, I think, what is this? Why is this? Where is this from? How is it? You know, all these questions come to mind around curiosity. So I'm wondering if I interpreted curiosity incorrectly.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, what if you didn't? What if you didn't interpret it correctly? I'm trying to get there's something under that question.
Well, the idea is in meditation, don't follow the stream. We're not doing vipassana, we're doing shamatha, so we're not trying to follow the investigation.
Right.
So how are you curious? I mean, there's awareness of things. Maybe that's what's implied.
Oh, now I see what you're going at. I couldn't find the language that hooks to my own practice. Yeah. You know, I don't know the answer to this, but it seems to me that calm abiding, we talk about calm abiding, vipassana, and contemplative meditation as though they're in 3 boxes that don't ever touch each other. And that's not possible. And one of the links is the 4 mindfulnesses: mindfulness of body, mind, sensation, and all phenomena, because that feels quite close to contemplation or curiosity, or because we are exploring, we're turning attention. Mindfulness of body, we're turning attention toward the body. But we always have these mental factors of attention and intention and motivation, actually. Those are always going, even we're sitting. So much calm abiding, we have those. So I know I don't have an answer to that. I would say, John, it's an exploration. Just keep exploring, and what we say, run the experiments, see what happens. But I would really, steer away from trying to get definitions and put them in boxes and such. Just see your experience. Let it be okay. And then the next time it won't be like that anyway. The next moment. Does that help at all, or?
Jeff, is that how you would?
Yeah, because it was kind of Jeff's thing. So I'm glad you're pointing it back to him. Yeah, Jeff, you're the one that started this. You take it.
Well, is this on? I was mainly pointing to how in our meditation, in my meditation, we can not be alive to the full range of our experience that we're having. To the point that sometimes something will be like sleep will be affecting our meditation, and we have this aversion to it. We try to get around it. We try to do other things. We almost take our attention away from it as a way of keeping our meditation going, when in fact, if we bring curiosity to it, like, oh, this is what's happening now. I should investigate this, or I should put my attention on it and see what's happening, because this is the experience I'm having. That can sometimes take us out of ruts that we have. And I again, I'm speaking from my own experience, having done meditation long enough to get in ruts over and over again. I found that sometimes I slide into what Lama Eric called the coma of meditation.
Yes.
And the curiosity is a way to kind of, oh, all this stuff is happening to me right now in my experience. I don't have to be in the coma.
Yeah. Exploring the meditation coma. What is this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lama, I'm glad you reminded me of that. Lama Eric said one time when he was helping us in one-year retreat, he said, the difference between meditation coma and actually calm abiding with awareness is the difference between riding an inner tube on a hot day down a slow river, meditation coma. It's very pleasant, nothing's happening, it's almost asleep, then it's a little awake. He said it's like that versus you're in a faster moving river and you're gonna stand up on the inner tube and you're gonna have to go like this. Ooh, too tight, oh, too loose. Not rigid, but you're going to have to ride those waves, see you're there. So I think that's a bit of it, like seeing, where am I? I'm floating in a coma. What's that like? Look at the coma. Does that help? Okay, good.
I did warn you, you'd have to bear with me. This is all new to me. I'm not so precise with this stuff, so thanks.
None of us are, but thank you. There were other questions first over here, I think. Sonia.
Zopa, when you were reading the prayer, the 4 immeasurable prayer this morning, I found I was getting stuck around the Buddha, Buddha, asking
Where
Buddha.
You asked the Buddha to inspire
you. Asked Buddha,
you.
and then I cause. I asked Buddha and I cause, all these beings to be free. And then when Sally, you were talking about the 4 immeasurables, just being there underneath all these layers. I just get like, I get stuck in that kind of relative ultimate. I mean, it's kind of a basic Buddhist question in some way, but it's like I'm chasing my tail, but if I actually grabbed hold of the tail, like I wouldn't have hands to hold on to the tail. It just feels like, and I don't ever feel like I'm particularly successful in that practice also. I don't know if successful is the right word, but it's like a head scratcher. And I also was just right now wondering about, like in Tonglen, you flash on ultimate bodhicitta.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, or at least you kind of
if
like,
you're lucky.
You get that fragrance or whatever that, just like you kind of are like hold, throwing that in the mix. But with the 4 immeasurables, not necessarily like built into the practice, or maybe it is, then I've just missed it. Anyway, that's
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
You know, I was right with you and Sally and myself about approaches to this. The best way to approach them, of course, is experientially. Just keep doing them. But on a theoretical, philosophical level, we're talking about the second turning and the third turning of the wheel. So this prayer that I read is much more second turning, where you you say, may all beings, all sentient beings abide in equanimity. May they abide in this way. I will cause that to occur. Guru Buddha, please inspire me to do so. In that moment, you can think of the Buddha on all those levels. The Buddha's your own. You're calling on your own Buddha. You're calling on Shakyamuni Buddha. So Shakyamuni Buddha, existed in a relative way 2,600 years ago, showed us the Dharma. He didn't make the Dharma up, he discovered it. But then you're calling on your own Buddha nature, and then you're calling on the Dharmakaya by doing that. The indescribable Mahamudra. So it's a constant contradiction for us. It's not like, at least my experience, we're not going to work that out and get it clear. Okay, now I'm in the relative, now I'm there. Because they're not apart. They're simultaneous. So at the same time, either Tonglen or meditating on loving kindness, the same time I'm considering there are other beings. There are no other beings. And so how more contradictory could we get? May you be well, may you be happy, may I cause that to occur. No you, no I. So what am I doing? That's the way we need to practice. Back and forth, back and forth. Why do we have to go back and forth? Because we don't, I can't speak for any of you, but I don't have a stable realization of appearance emptiness as non-dual. If I did, I'd be a 10th level bodhisattva, next step Buddhahood. We can get flashes of that. But when we see an appearance, the first thing we do from our ignorance is, it is what it appears like to me. I mean, there's the first, what do I want to say? Maybe the first nanosecond of appearance when we haven't put a bunch of stories on top. But we jump over that right away. I mean, I look and I say, woman, Asian, going to take refuge, comes to the evening practice. I mean, I have a whole thing going, right? And you do if you look at me, So I don't even get that first clean, clear, brand new appearance. I don't get it. I hop over it and I'm already into my mental story about it, which is utter confusion, really. I mean, on a relative level, other people will agree. We're in a room called KCC. That's important. We're not completely going insane here, saying, no, I'm in San Francisco. But on the ultimate level, because of, it's impossible to talk about, because of the relative can only rise because of the emptiness. If things existed the solid way they appear, they would never change. They would never come into being. They would never go out of being. So most of the time as we are perceiving things, solid, separate, like I think Lisa is separate from Tracy, and solid, separate. If you existed that way, you wouldn't even be able to move. Well, you wouldn't have come into being. Because to come into being, there's change. And I don't perceive that change. I think you are the same Sonia who asked the question, but you're not. There's already been so much change in me and you and words in the air. Is that? It's you're pointing at the whole contradiction of our practice. But it's because what one teacher said that was helpful to me is, in our current state of ignorance, we have to work back and forth. Relative, so I work my 4 immeasurables like there are real people, real suffering, real love, and I work that. And then ultimate. Doesn't exist that way, not in its truest, deepest nature. And then you work there for a while, or don't work. You be there, and then back and forth. And a Buddha, when we realize our Buddha nature, no back and forth. That's Mahamudra. The Maha Great Mudra seal is like the king put a seal on a document. The seal is emptiness on all appearances. And it's not on them, and it's not in them. It is them. We don't have good language. As soon as we put language on, we're doing spatial and time stuff that don't apply. Sorry, I'm so confused, because it is confusing to us till we're fully awakened. And yes, we can have these flash moments, like you said, like Tonglen in particular, can have that sense, like, you're taking someone's suffering, and then you see their joy because their suffering's gone, and you feel joy, but you just took suffering, and so it starts loosening all that. No I, no other, no real suffering, no joy, no difference. Is that getting towards what you're asking? Yeah. Good.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to air.
To air it. And and we have to air it over and over, and yet the words don't work. At some point, the words fail us, because what did they say? Bokar Rinpoche, Lama Michael said, words will get you so close, and then they'll take you away. So close to the truth, and then they'll pull you away. And that's what I experience over and over with study and talking about it. Because it's beyond concept. Just think of that. What's beyond concept for us? I just look out and I have concepts all over the place. So, but that experience, realization of reality as it is beyond concept. And every teacher will say that, and they experience it. I generally don't, and specifically don't, and generally don't. But they will say it is beyond concept, as Kempo Lodro Donyo makes that joke. Mahamudra is beyond concept. And here's the big bookcase on Mahamudra. Because that's where we are. We have to work where we are. Finger points at the moon, but it's not the moon. Yeah. It's good you're working with that.
This is just a follow-up with the Bodhisattva vows and vowing to free, save, whatever. And then talking about projections on the outside being samsaric realm. and then just tying in also this practice of contemplating, whether it's having compassion or sympathetic joy. What are the instructions about how to hold like, let's say you're talking about suffering of others. I could look at you and say, oh, you're old, and project my sense of old, and that you be free from this old age I'm projecting on you. Or I could say, project free myself of, like, from the absolute realm, letting go of or maybe working with myself on my view that you're stuck by old age. The difference is playing back and forth, like you're talking about, of how I'm viewing suffering outside. One type of suffering is they're actually experiencing physical pain, but another one is letting go of the suffering I'm projecting outside, or that they're experiencing their old age as suffering, when actually it's not suffering.
Yeah, for them.
Yes.
In other words, you're saying they might not be having the experience you're imagining.
Yes. So,
yeah.
And
yeah.
also just, I could see easily falling into the trap of just pitying people out there as you're working on freeing folks from suffering, and not seeing multiple angles of suffering that are created in even your own work of what you're throwing on others. If they are not outside, not separate of you, holding that space where you also see their suffering as not there too.
Yeah, that's a good view, what you're pointing at. However, what I notice is this thing of, when you're doing those 4 contemplations on the 4 immeasurables, you do want to imagine their suffering. Because until we actually get heart for one another's suffering, we don't practice deeply enough. We skim over it. We can skim over it in a million ways. Like, I'll just use your example. Mm-hmm. Oh, she looks old, but I'm sure she's not suffering from aging. Or you're not saying, I'm sure. She may be not. So where does that lead you? It just leads you to a so. But in that, what you want to get clear about is, what's the purpose of the practice on the cushion? So on the cushion with that practice, you are imagining the person suffering so that you can engender the compassion. Then you carry that compassion out in the world, and you try to dump all your assumptions, which is what you're pointing at. Not everybody suffers from aging in the same way. Some people age very gracefully, very gratefully. Maybe they don't have much body pain. But that's not the practice in that practice on the cushion. Do you see the difference? Mm-hmm. Yeah. What you're trying to do in that on the cushion practice is engender compassion. Because yes, we kind of automatically have it, but if we were so good at it, the world would look really different. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So we still have to fake it till we make it. Yeah. Right?
And so our practice related to the suffering is as good as we can see suffering, and be there with it.
Yeah.
So whatever depth of our working on suffering occurs, that's where we should be at with the practice.
Because it's the very first thing the Buddha taught. Suffering is first noble truth. Second noble truth, what's the cause of it? Your own mind and heart. Mind and heart. Okay? Cool. But I'm not there. I don't walk around being compassion. I'd like to. I'm working towards it. But I get mad at drivers. I get irritated in the grocery store. I don't like the music they're playing. I have aversion and attachment all day. And so I see that. And I see that it causes suffering in the world. I'm not walking around like a bodhisattva. I'm a bodhisattva in training. So that means I got to get on the cushion and engender things, develop the things, cultivate the things I want to have. And then they do show up off the cushion. It happens more naturally. That makes sense? Okay, great, thanks.
So on the topic of refuge, we're doing our meditations this morning. Was contemplating refuge, and sort of in my mind, and maybe what I was hearing was, and what I've heard from others is that, you know, refuge is not, it's not a place or a thing, and it's frees you from things, right? That you're driving more towards maybe whatever that Buddha nature would be, to take refuge from those things that aren't. But in my mind, when I'm doing that, I keep thinking of places, maybe not things like, you know, that 68 GTO, but like places, like this place, you know, or sitting on a, you know, a mountaintop in Southern Oregon or something like that. And those feel like refuge to me, like that puts me in that place. And I'm just wondering, is that false refuge, to be thinking of this building and this Sangha as refuge?
No, that's a good relative refuge. Sangha is a good refuge. I mean, the building, the people. Refuge is a process. So when you feel some kind of refuge here, I would just say, look back in your own mind. What's that feel like? Do some curiosity, as Jeff was saying. What's that feel like? So I think refuge, I think of KCC. What's going on there? You know, something happens to your mind when you think of KCC. I used to live in a monastery, and a lot of times I reflect back to those 5 years. I take refuge in it because there's an actual place there, and some of my monastic friends are there, and I take refuge in the fact that they're there. And I don't know what it does. It lifts me. It contradicts discouragement. I feel happy. So refuge is happening here also, just like all of it's happening here. So sure, you sit on a mountaintop. Why is that? Why does it feel like refuge to you?
Well, I think it just gives you, gives me an opportunity or a space to it opens up my mind, kind of like a canvas, to think about the other things that we've talked about here, to find balance, to be able to sort of absorb the calm and absorb compassion. And so it just gives me that space where it's more like a canvas than being in some, you know, concert hall with a lot of noise where you can't do anything but just watch and listen to something.
So it opens space, it opens calm. That's the refuge. The refuge is what happens in your mind. That makes sense. Refuge is in here. These things on the outside. I mean, we know of bodhisattvas who, have heard of bodhisattvas who can be being tortured in a prison, and they're taking refuge in their own Buddha nature. One of the wonderful stories, so inspiring, the Dalai Lama tends to meet with people who escape from Tibet. Some of them are monastics or practitioners who've been tortured. He met with this one monk. I wish I'd memorized the monk's name, but I don't know it. Some people might. And that person had been imprisoned by the Chinese for a couple decades, I guess, and tortured. And the Dalai Lama asked him, what was the most difficult thing for you during that time? I don't think I can say this answer without crying, but he said, the monk said, the most difficult thing was that I thought I might lose compassion for those torturing me. Now that guy had refuge. He's being tortured in a prison, and he's got full refuge in the path, in the practice. This is what we're aspiring toward. For us, conditions are really important right now to have a nice place where people come together, be able to go to a mountaintop. But not everybody has those conditions, and we want to get our minds strong enough and clear enough that we could be anywhere with anyone and see a torturer as our loving mother and not want to harm them with our mind. Wow. That's a deep refuge. That's why I say it's a process, right? It's a process. But the mind can do that. We can do that. We have that capacity here already. That monk's capacity is not different than yours. It's just practice, practice.
Thank you. As I go through this, I know that I've been filled with a lot of false refuge over the years, and so finding that refuge feels a little bit, I don't want to say like a minefield, but I just want to make sure I'm looking at things the right way.
Don't worry. Don't worry, be happy. Really, so important to have a touch to your joy in taking refuge more than the worries. Yeah, worries will come. Did I do it right? Am I, I didn't practice today. Whip, whip. Which won't make you practice more. Okay? Thank you. Somebody over here. Yeah. Oh, Susan.
I'm taking in and understanding somewhat that thoughts are sort of the beginning of everything. I mean, in terms of you have a thought, and that goes into speech, and then that goes into action.
Mm-hmm.
I'm often not aware at all of my thoughts. Is there a way to become, being able to see the thought?
Yeah, and it's what we're doing. Calm abiding is all about that. You sit, thoughts pop up, you see them, thoughts pop up. Sometimes you don't see them. Sometimes you're 20 minutes lost in it. But it's a practice of seeing them. Yeah. I don't know other ways.
Okay. I mean, because I know that. Okay. Okay.
It's how do we see our thoughts? We have to practice seeing our thoughts. I know that maybe sounds facile, but I don't know any other way. And then we can also see, all day long, I didn't see my thoughts. The last 4 hours, I just ran around and did errands and, went here and there. And I didn't really notice much about my thoughts. You can do that one breath practice during the day as often as you can remember, because that's a training in not being lost in them. You're lost in thoughts. You're running around, driving a car, doing something, and you go, one breath meditation. That helps you see, oh, I was lost in thoughts. But I don't think it's a pretty high level to see each thought that you have during the day. Think how hard it is to do on the cushion with total quiet. You get in a car, or you go to a store. There's so much coming at us. We just work at it.
Yeah, I guess my experience is that they're so subtle that I'm not being able to grasp them.
Yeah. Yeah, just keep looking. Keep looking, keep experiencing. Maybe ask, what's the difference between a subtle thought and a gross thought? During one year retreat, one of the exercises we did, that was kind of fun, and I use it sometimes, is sit there in calm abiding. When your mind does get a little calm, conjure a thought, make it up. So I used to use giraffe. And it would be gone before I could, So we're experiencing the nature of thought. It's so impermanent, so you can't hold on to it. Then you do giraffe again. Is that the same giraffe? And what giraffe is that anywhere? Anyway, it's called a generic giraffe. It's no particular giraffe. Mostly we function in generic thinking. Like I say pizza to you. You're generally not thinking of a specific pizza with the anchovy over here and the olive over there. You just go pizza. And that's the world we live in, this kind of we're not experiencing. We're just in a generic kind of almost flattened out, not so vivid world. Yeah, so mind is an interesting thing. And it's not a thing. Process. It's a process. Brain's a thing. Mind's not a thing. Bob?
Well, in practicing seeing thoughts, I was thinking, at least in my own experience, sometimes I may not see the thoughts, but sometimes I can see the results of the thoughts that I habitually think. Sometimes if I'm thinking cranky thoughts, separate thoughts, attack thoughts, discouraging thoughts, depressing thoughts, I end up pretty depressed and cranky and mean and grumpy and hate everything. And I tried that, and it really works.
Yes, it does work.
And then I noticed, I think that's suffering. And then I said, well, sweetheart, dear, what do you think we consider contemplating different kinds of thoughts? What do you think? Well, I don't know. Let's try it. So I started to focus on thankfulness and joy and delight and love and compassion for others. And I actually just started to change the results that I noticed in my moods and the way I viewed the world. So it was kind of a result. I really showed the result, and that made me happy, not depressed and not cranky. And I said, there's something going on here. And so I really noticed the thoughts. I couldn't see my thoughts, but I could see the effect of the habitual thoughts I was thinking. Nice. So even if the thoughts are, because it can seem, because it's like a bottle doesn't, if you have a dripping faucet into a bottle, it doesn't fill up all at once. It fills up one drip at a time. And very gradually the drips of either encouraging, loving, compassionate, kind, generous thoughts makes me, over time, all those, it brings that kind of result into my life. But if I put all those other kind of thoughts, then I end up having a dirty glass and I hate everything. So it's interesting just to notice that. So I think sometimes I can't see all my thoughts, but I can see the results. Don't know if that makes sense. But
Yeah, that's helpful, I think, because it's quite hard to get to the subtleness of what thought. And a lot of times when we go into meditation coma, I particularly noticed this on the one-year retreat when there was more time to be practicing calm abiding. It's like a TV set kind of shut off, but the little ticker tape things going across the bottom, there's the news show, and then that thing runs across the bottom with other news. And I would think, wow, I'm so calm. And then I'd be really watching and going, what's that? It's just kind of more subtle, but it's still going and going and going. Our mind is complex, so. But you're kind of giving a way to uncomplicate it. Just do the practice of replacing discouraging thoughts, grumpy thoughts, angry thoughts with something like, oh, I think I'll think of the advantages of patience here. Mm-hmm. When I'm patient, people like being around me. When I'm impatient, they don't want to be around me.
And just being inquisitive and open to notice what the results are. And not judgmental of me when I some days am cranky and that part comes out that says, well, I don't like anything and I'm going to tell you about it. And then, and rather than saying shut up, just saying, oh, really, what's going on here? And being gentle with that part.
Kind to your own self.
Yes.
Yeah. So the things Bob and I are talking about right now are more of those conceptual antidotes. Right. They're different from the non-conceptual, like dropping into the realization of each of those thoughts are completely empty, whether they're patience, impatience, same nature. Right. Grab it, show me.
Yeah.
What impatience, grab it and show it. The actual thought of it, it's empty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good reminder.
And that's the bottom line antidote to each thing. But some of us can't go right there. It doesn't work. Some of us like to have conceptual antidotes along the way, which can help with these habit patterns of negative suffering thoughts. Okay, one more question, and we need a microphone over here. Can you share your name? I don't know it. Did you tell me yesterday?
My name's Caroline.
Caroline.
Yeah, hi. I have a question maybe about the coma part.
Comas, yeah.
So I notice when I have those moments where I come back to my breath and I'm able to do that, I get really, really sleepy and nod off a little bit when I have those moments where I can actually come back and just empty the thoughts and just breathe. And so I feel like there's something missing if I'm falling asleep every time. And I'm thinking about alertness and awareness and the idea of like listening or noticing sounds. And that brings up a different thing where I'm almost anticipating things.
Where you're what?
Anticipating.
Oh, like waiting for a sound.
Yeah, like, oh, what's the next sound going to be? So I guess I'm just trying to figure out what is the coma? Where's the right space?
Have you been meditating very long?
No.
Okay. And this is also true for people who've meditated longer. Just watch, just experience. Don't try to move this or do that, or when you're sleepy, just look at the sleepiness. There's all kinds of physical tricks for sleepiness. Straighten up a little more. So sit a little more, like I'm alert.
Well, what's the coma? Is it related to the
coma?
Oh,
coma is more like when you feel like I'm just coasting along. I've got it down. This is so calm, so abiding, so cool, so good. I'm so peaceful. You get it? It's not the same as sleep. It's the inner tube in the hot sun, you know. But you've totally forgotten that you're on a river and you're supposed to be watching what's in your mind. Because you could turn and watch and go, I'm in a coma. And then you can brighten your mind up. We can brighten our own minds. People maybe don't. You know, who do you think would brighten your mind or depress your mind? It's you. I can't get in there and brighten your mind or depress your mind. So it's you. So you can brighten your mind. My one Lama used to say, just see it's called a tigle, but a very bright white dot right here. Shiny, shiny diamond. Just do that, you know. Or he used to say, get up and go throw cold water on your face. Or put a cup of water on your head. They actually used to do this for the sleepy ones. And then you don't nod off. You're very alert. Maybe you get a neck ache and you're really rigid. But so all the time in meditation, we're working between too tight, too loose. This is how the Buddha talked about it in the sutras. My mind's too tight. You know, oh God, I hope I do this right. Oh, that breath was not smooth. You know, too tight. Too loose is the coma, you know, or sleep. So we're always working between too tight, too loose. But don't do that rigidly either. You know, do that relaxedly. Like when you throw a pot and it's too dry, you put a little more water in. It's too wet, you let it dry out a little. It's like that. Okay, we are going now to read Aspirations for Mahamudra, which is a prayer designed to throw us into the ultimate with words. Imagine that. Somehow it can do it. So just relax, don't work too hard at it, just read it and enjoy.
What's the schedule?
And then we're going to dedicate and set up for refuge.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Are there enough copies? There's more here. You need one. It's always true. Thank you, John. Okay. Everybody got it? Let's go. Namu Guru, Gurus and Yidams, deities of the mandala, Buddhas of the 3 times and 10 directions, and your children, consider me with kindness. Grant your blessing that all my wishes be realized. Sprung from the snow mountain of the pure actions and intentions, mine and those of all sentient beings without limit. May the river of virtue undefiled by the 3 spheres flow into the ocean of the 4 bodies of Buddha. As long as I have not realized this, through all my lifetimes, birth after birth, may not even the words for defilement and suffering be heard. And may I enjoy the prosperity of oceans of happiness and virtue. having obtained this excellent, free, and well-favored life, along with faith, energy, and intelligence, having attended a worthy master and received the pith of the sacred instructions, may I practice the sacred Dharma properly all my lives without interruption. The study of scriptures frees one from the veil of ignorance. The contemplation of oral instructions overcomes the darkness of doubt. Light born of meditation illuminates the way things are. May the radiance of the three wisdoms increase. The significance of the ground is the two truths, free from the extremes of eternalism and nihilism. The excellent path to two accumulations, free from the extremes of assumption and denial. The result obtained is the two benefits, free from the extremes of existence and peace. May I meet the Dharma which is free from error. The ground of refinement is mind itself, indivisible luminosity and emptiness. Refining the great Vajra composure of Mahamudra. What is to be refined, the incidental stains of confusion. The result of refining unstained Dharmakaya, may I realize it. Confidence in outlook is cutting compassions about ground. Key to meditation is maintaining that without distraction. Supreme activity is to exercise the sense of meditation in everything. May I have confidence in outlook, meditation, and activity. All dharmas are projections of the mind. As for mind, there is no mind. Mind's nature is empty. Empty and immediate, mind appears as everything. Investigating it well, may I settle the basic points. Appearances which never existed in themselves have been confused as objects. Awareness itself, because of ignorance, has been confused as a self. Through the power of dualistic fixation, I wander in the realm of existence. May ignorance and confusion be completely resolved. It doesn't exist, even Buddhas do not see it. It does not exist, it is the origin of samsara and nirvana. No contradiction, conjunction, the middle way. May I realize the pure being of mind, free of extremes. If one says it is this, nothing has been posited. If one says it is not this, nothing has been denied. Unconditioned pure being transcends intellect. May I gain conviction in the ultimate position. Not realizing it, one circles in the ocean of samsara. Realizing it, Buddha isn't anywhere else. It is everything, it isn't anything, none of this. Pure being, the basis of everything. May I see any misunderstanding here. Since appearance is mind and emptiness is mind, since realization is mind and delusion is mind, since arising is mind and cessation is mind, may all assumptions about mind be eliminated, unpolluted by with intellectual efforts, undisturbed by the winds of everyday affairs, not manipulating, knowing how to let what is true be itself. May I become skilled in this practice of mind and maintain it. Of subtle and coarse thoughts calm down in their own ground. Motionless, the river of mind abides naturally. Free from the contaminations of dullness and torpor, may I establish the still ocean of shamatha. When one looks again and again at the mind which cannot be looked at, and sees vividly for what it is, the meaning of not seeing, doubts about the meaning of is and is not are resolved. Without confusion, may my own face know itself. Looking at objects, there is no object. One sees mind. Looking at mind, there is no mind. It is empty of nature. Looking at both of these, dualistic clinging subsides on its own.
May I realize sheer clarity the way mind is. Free from mental constructions, it is called Mahamudra. Free from extremes, it is called Madhyamika. Everything complete here, it is also called Mahāti. May I attain the confidence that, standing one, all are realized.
The great bliss of non-attachment is continuous.
Sheer clarity without fixations is free of observations. Passing beyond intellect,
non-thought is
naturally present. May these experiences continually arise without effort. Attachment to good and fixation on experience subside on their own. Confusion and evil concepts are cleared away in the realm of ultimate nature. In the ordinary mind, there is no rejection or acceptance,
no
separation or attainment. May I realize the truth of pure being, complete simplicity.
While the
The nature of beings has always been full enlightenment. Not realizing this, they wander in endless samsara. For the boundless suffering of sentient beings, may overwhelming compassion be born in my being. While such compassion is active and immediate, in the moment of compassion, its essential emptiness is nakedly clear. This conjunction is the undeviating supreme path. Inseparable from it, may I meditate day and night.
From the power of
meditation come eyes and actual knowledge. Sentient beings are ripened in domains of enlightenment refined. Aspirations for the realization of all aspects of Buddhahood.
May I complete these three:
fulfillment, refinement, and become Buddha. By the compassion of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, and the power of whatever pure virtue there may be, may my wishes and those of all beings be fulfilled in this ask in this way.
Thank you so much. And special thank you to the people who are going to take refuge, who made this all impossible not to do. So in terms of getting ready, feel free, have a break, greet your people. 2 rows should be, no, 1 row. Let's remove 1 row, so this first row of cushions, so that the people will be able to stand and prostrate. And the refugees should sit in the 2nd row. And if you're a refugee who needs a chair, we're all refugees, but I like to use that word, then put chairs on the ends, okay? But let's get this first row out of the way.